Hey, welcome back, everyone. Yes, everyone, kindred, ghouls, mortals, everyone. We are SVBN. This is the SVBN crew chat. We are back for another crew conversation. I'm the legend. I'm Sam Wildridge, and I am joined tonight by one of our most recent joins to our team. He's come and got on board with us only recently. He's agreed to talk to me tonight. I'm hoping to get to know him a little bit better, and I'm hoping that you guys get to know him a little bit better. Hey, JP, welcome to SVBN, and welcome to the crew vlog.
Hey man, thanks very much. I appreciate you having me. It's nice to finally meet the man, the myth, the legend, the tower of power, the pinnacle of sexual perfection, Sam.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you.
Yeah, your reputation precedes you.
Yeah, indeed. Well, most things precede me. I'm pretty hard to miss.
Well, even I could see you coming.
That's saying something.
Right, and now we've got to tell that joke so everybody watching and listening and so on knows what the hell that's on about. You might thought my eyes are kind of doing the thing, yeah? Yeah,
so JP, so you're blind, right? Yeah, that's
not totally, but mostly.
Right, okay. Yeah. But you're, I see you're holding your guitar. You're a musician. Yeah. So you've got on board with us because of your music, right? You reached out to Mark recently. So tell me, how did you find, because you're clearly from the colonies. You're not.
I am indeed.
Right. So it's nice that you've come.
Patriated.
Yeah, I'm about to say it's nice you've come back. No, so you're living here in Britain. You found out about SVBN, but you're not actually in Southampton. You don't have to declare where you are, by the way. But
no, it's fine. I'm not scared or afraid or whatever. The short and sweet is I spend half my time here in UK around Bristol and the other half back in the States.
Okay.
So I do that, kind of half each year. I go back and forth because of kind of what I do for a living. I can, as long as I've got the internet and I've got my computer and keyboard, guitar, etc., I can write books or make music anywhere. So as long as
fantastic
with stuff, I can do the thing. Right?
Sure, as long as you've got the internet, right? Like most of us, as long as you're connected to the internet in some way, you're okay, right?
Well, exactly, because I can do most of the stuff even without the internet because it's all going onto the computer. But if I need a new sound or I have to double check something that requires research, obviously you need that. So yeah,
sure. So how did you find out about SVBN then? So you're not a local to us. You're not part of our inner circle, although you've now been introduced to our inner circle and you've joined us. So how did you find out about us?
Yeah, for whatever reason, the prince said yes, so here am I.
Well, we say prince. I don't call him prince. The ham-fisted oath said yes.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I'm new. I'm still a little fine. Don't judge. I'm just an ignorant yank. It's fine. So a YouTuber who is a mutual friend of myself and Mark's had actually recently put up a tweet saying that his old buddy Mark was doing this thing, and I'm like, well, no, wait a minute. I know the vamp scene from way back in the day,
right?
Back when White Wolf first kind of got everything up and rolling and doing the thing, and I've done my share of live action and I've done my share of tabletop and I've played and I've run and so forth and so on. So my immediate thought was, well, COVID, so I guess I'm not going to get to go do anything.
Sure.
But I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, I'm a composer, I'm a fantasy author, specifically fantasy horror, kind of military fantasy horror. So I've got things I can bring to the table if they're necessary. And if they're not necessary, no harm, no foul. So I reached out to Mark and I kind of just told him what I just said to you. Like, look, I don't know that I'll be able to get to you a lot given lockdown, but if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. And he's like, well, I appreciate it. We're not going to do anything for quite some time, but thanks very much. I'm like, hey, no problem. If you need something for the channel, if you need some music, or if you need some additional prose done, some additional writing or anything like that, let me know. That immediately made him kind of snap his head around. I actually heard the crack in his neck.
Yeah, anyone offering. Yeah, anyone offering to do anything, and anything. Honestly, if it's something that he doesn't have to do, and we put a lot of pressure on our illustrious leader. He ends up with a lot of. Well, it's like the thing is, it's his so this started as his passion project, and he's kind of like a force of nature, and he kind of picks up waifs and strays on his way, and kind of you enter his orbit.
I'm not a waif, and I'm not a stray.
No, but you know what I mean. Neither am I, but you know what I mean.
Exactly.
he kind of just like sucks you up into the orbit of it and like convinces you that it's a good idea to do things for him. But yes, I guess he is a bit like a vampire prince. Maybe he has got some sort of mind control going on. No, he hasn't at all. But no, we do it because it's really enjoyable to do.
Face to face.
Yeah, maybe.
You've spent time in rooms with him. I haven't had.
Yeah, it's more of a smell. But it's more of a smell, actually. To be fair, no.
I had no idea it was a gangrel. It's fine. It's okay.
But yeah, he definitely because he mentioned that he'd been reached out to by yourself, and he talked about it because you do voiceover. He said this guy has got in touch who does voiceovers and music, and we were like, okay, that sounds cool. So the one thing I wasn't around last week, so you came in and joined us last week for your first crew session, and then you were with us this week for our crew session. And very quickly, like I noticed, like suddenly, like you got involved, and within like 2 weeks, we've got a song. Like, so how does that process work? Did you already have something rolling?
No, this was all done like the first time I talked to Mark over text,
right?
And he said he absolutely wanted to get some music. That would be awesome. I started doing the work, but I didn't go super ham because, of course, you need to make certain that you're going in the right direction. Unless it's your project, you know if you're going in the right direction if it's entirely your thing, right?
Sure.
No one needs to tell you that you are doing the thing you kind of set out to do if you're the one who came up with it. But
yeah, right.
This is a project that isn't just me. So while I think I'm on the right track, I kind of need to be sure that the people that are in charge agree before I spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours in pre-production and then in final tracking to put a piece out, right? So what I wanted to go with was initially I was just thinking for one song I was going to go with this sort of post-industrial dark rockish thing, very much the best stuff from Queen of the Damned as opposed to the movie itself.
Well, the sound. If there was any takeaways from that movie, it was the soundtrack, right? I might not be a vampire player, but I enjoy the genre as much as anyone else does, and that movie was definitely garbage fire. But the soundtrack was fantastic.
Well, exactly. And there was a bunch of drama that went around with that, which is why John didn't actually record this stuff for the final album and put it out that way. That had to come out much, much later because he had contract drama. He wrote it all, and that's why we had all those excellent people that ended up recording the songs he wrote.
Right.
It worked out well. But in any event, I love the music. It was one of the major benefits to them making the hacked up changes they did to the storyline for that movie. We got modern music at the time. And I liked the feel. So I used that for a source for inspiration and so on, and kind of came up with this basic, progression melody line, very suspenseful, kind of almost there, anticipatory vibe, with very industrial drums and a little bit of electric guitar and so on and so forth. And I sent that off initially. I wanted to get it up on the crew page, but there were some technical difficulties there. So I sent it off to Mark, and I sent it off to Chrissy, and they liked it, but there were a few things they noted, and they made perfect sense to me. But once I had that, it gave me what I needed. So then I sat down and finished it off. So I had a track to show them, and all of you come Tuesday night. When I sat down for the first meeting, I said I was already working on stuff because Mark had already told me he wanted something. I think he was a little surprised, but in a happy way. Right. And then over the course of the next week, the song was written, and now Without Fear is not done from a production perspective, but the song is done.
Walk with me, you're sleep cold. Run with me, you're stay and hold your fear of tomorrow's undone.
just listened to it on Tuesday, and it sounded. I was surprised how. Like, I know you said there was still a lot of work to do on it, and you still instrumentals to do, and there's still lots of production. But I was surprised how complete it sounded. I know you said you want to redo the vocals, and although the vocals sounded fine from my point of view, but then I'm no expert or anything. But although fine is probably not what you were looking for, you're probably looking for they sound excellent. So I don't mean to insult you there.
No, mate, you're 100% fine. Stop it. You know how it is. Everybody that has any task that they are particularly either known for, talented at, or just enjoy, nuances of that task that other people don't pick up on.
Sure.
Right. Once I balanced out the mix so that it gave a little more volume to the vocals and a little less bass to some of the other parts, I could put that in the hands of most listeners, and most listeners would go, all right, cool. And they'd be done. Right. There'd be nothing in there that they'd stop at. But any musician, any producer, anybody in that line of work at all, or even just dabbling in it, would immediately stop and be like, "That's an error." That was
of course, right. When you
off, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the untrained eye or ear even can't hear it. But if you know what you're listening to, But
you hear every single flaw.
I was fascinated actually because I did listen to the lyrics, and I have re-listened to the song, and it is clearer the second time listening through, and I was fascinated by the story that you were telling, and listening to it a second time. And I was, to a certain extent, it helped that you pointed out what you were saying. Then when I listened to it a second time, it made more sense, and I could listen and hear it. But what I was fascinated, and I immediately thought, I wonder what came first. Did the feel of the song and the melody and the tune, did that come first, or did you get the idea for the story? Because I don't do music, so how does the process work?
Well, so it varies. I've had songs that have come to me in 20 minutes and the song's already done, like completely done. Like I had my nephew overnight at one point and came downstairs in the morning and made coffee as you do. And this thing kind of struck me in the back of the head, and I picked up the guitar. And by the time he was downstairs complaining that there wasn't already coffee for him, there was a song. And he's like, "I've never heard that." I'm like, "Well, it's because I wrote it while you were too busy sleeping upstairs." And he really liked it. So there are songs that hit you out of nowhere, lock, stock, and barrel. They're almost instantly done. And that happens. And then there are others that are longer pieces. I mean, I've had sets of lyrics and melody lines that don't have the rest of a song to them that have been sitting around in my file for a year or two before I finally get to use them.
Right.
But in this specific case, with the song Without Fear, which is the track we're talking about, it was first the overall feel and just basic chord progression, loose, just kind of riffing, playing on it, right? Then when I got the green light for the overall feel, I started to tighten it up, and that's when the first verse came. And I sent the first verse off to Mark, and he liked it.
Right.
Couldn't recognize it along with the melody lines he had heard with the very, very, very first rough I sent him. And I'm like, "That's fine. As long as you don't hate them, we're good." And I finished out the song and then recorded it. And I spent, it's probably 14 hours of creation and production from Monday to Tuesday. I stopped working on the song literally 10 minutes before the meeting.
Okay.
Right.
Do you get like that in your creative process when you work with, because I know I'm not creative in the same way. I'm much more technical, and I do a little bit of dabbling in painting, but it's not anywhere near professional level. So and I wouldn't call myself any good or anything. But when I'm passionate about something, it's something that I'll do. And do you find that with this, like, does it like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm not going to stop until it's done? Like, yeah, that's cool.
It keeps you up nights. Stephen King is probably my favorite person for this, and I'm paraphrasing, but in one of his books, he has a character that quite rightly says, "Talent won't be quiet. It wakes you up in the middle of the night screaming, use me, use me."
Sure.
Right? And that's how it works. I have literally been, there's a song I did in my very first album called When. And before I ever recorded the record, I was still, I was living with my drummer at the time in DC, back in the States. And I was asleep. I had to get up for work in the morning, and I had to get up for work at in 4 hours, but I couldn't stay asleep.
Right.
I literally got woken up out of a dead sleep, tried to go back to sleep. 10 minutes later, went, "All right, fine. Got up, turned on the computer, picked up the guitar, and out gushed the song.
Right.
It was an hour before I could go back to sleep because I had to keep playing it. Because
get it out of the system, get it done, and then I can go back to sleep.
Okay, can I go to bed? please. Yeah, like that's how it works.
So has music always been a passion for you? Like,
Yeah, they say I sang before I spoke.
okay,
At the ripe old age of 5, I declared what I was going to do with my life, and needless to say, everybody thought it was cute when you were 5, and
sure,
thought you were completely barking, fucking howling mad by the time you're 13 and 14.
sure.
Come on, just go get a job.
Yeah, sure. Please, I don't want to lay about the guitarist. Please go get a job, right?
Exactly. So for this song specific though, like once I had the green light from him, I picked up the acoustic and then wrote the song on acoustic, because I'm a firm believer that in very rare exceptions this isn't the case, but almost exclusively, if it's a good song, it will sound at least all right with just one guitar and one voice.
Okay.
If you can't do that with the song, then it probably wasn't that good a song. There are exceptions. There are genre exceptions that require, all the turntable samurai stuff that you by definition can't play with a single guitar.
Sure.
But most of the time, I feel like if you can't make the song happen with just you and a single instrument, it might not have been that good of a song.
Sure.
So the lyrical process for me was sitting down with the guitar, working out the chords correctly, and then working out the rest of the lyrics and writing them down, and then I recorded them, and that was that.
Yeah. So, is that something you foresee? So you're now involved with SVBN, Southampton Vampire By Night. You're now involved with the core crew. You joined us. Yeah, you joined us on Tuesday for your second session, and you agreed to come along and join in. And the way we work as a crew is we take on jobs as they come up, as people are passionate or knowledgeable or skillful. We pick them up a bit like this. Like tonight, we had a slot that had opened up because of availability and because of someone being not very well, bless her. So we were short of doing a session. Mark was like, if anyone wants to do it, say now, or we'll leave it a week. You and I said, let's do it. Yes. And that's kind of how our crew works. We went through a phase where we didn't work like that. So like we used to be very, very regimented. Like there is this much work. It's been divided up by, there's 8 of you. There's this much work. We've divided it up by 8. Now you've all got to go and produce it. And the problem was that it was very stressful for everyone. And no one did anything, which then meant Mark just chased everyone saying, what are you doing with this? And what are you doing with that? And then people became very antagonistic because they're like, well, I'm not doing anything because it's not my passion. It's not my project. And you know what? Get off my back. Yeah. And it became very antagonistic, and it made up like the person running the project very anxious because he didn't want to put the pressure on people, but he didn't know how to get the job done.
Has to do the thing.
Yeah. So what we end up doing actually is we have a much more informal process now where we discuss what needs to happen, whether it's music or a YouTube video or content for our website. We discuss what we need and we allow the team to say, well, I can do that. That's not a problem. I've got some time. As long as you're happy to wait a week, or if you can give me 2 weeks, I'll have it for you by then. So it's become much more kind of, but then the joy of that is a bit like you with your doing the song for us. It becomes your passion for the moment. Absolutely. So you're like, I'm really intrigued. I really want to do that NPC, or I want to write that little bit of storyline, or I want to do this little bit of ruling for a discipline or something. And for that moment, it becomes the thing that you're going to do rather than that thing that someone's told you have to do, which that's always like, we're doing this for a passion project. We're doing this for fun, right? We're not getting paid. We're doing this because we want to enjoy hanging out with each other in lockdown, and we can't. We want to be creative, and we can't because we can't LARP, and we can't. I run a couple of D&D sessions, but it's hard. So I think it's a really nice way. So is there? You said earlier on that both before we started recording and while we've been recording, you said that you've been involved in Vampire or White Wolf and the World of Darkness probably all the way back to release. So is there like other areas you've done? And I know your plan is to do more music. But is there other areas in the project where you feel that you want to get involved?
Yeah, so everything is to some degree up for grabs. I'm still trying to find my feet when it comes to the group itself, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to step on toes. I'm just making sure I stay on my own feet. I'm good to go.
Sure.
But if there's an opportunity and I can be involved to help out with fleshing out the lore, writing, bits locally for sort of the local history so it's a little clearer, helping to put out videos, helping to make rulings, helping to create NPCs, like any of those things I'm fine with. I've done my share. I've done my time, although it's been a long time. By the same token, I'm not going to go cry myself to sleep if, well, we got that covered, man. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah. But again, it tends to be like, what we tend to do, right? So one of the things, and I think this is probably quite interesting for people watching and listening to this, but one of the things we do is we present a problem like, okay, we want to decide who the seneschal is going to be. Okay, so everyone then goes away and has an idea about it. And what we do is we come back on a Tuesday and we're like, okay, so what's your idea for the seneschal? And I'm like, this is my idea for the seneschal. And then you say what your idea is, and we go around the group and everyone pitches their idea, and whichever one is the most popular, you get stuck with your
Congratulations, man. It's all you. I hope you really like that idea because we're picking you.
Yeah, so you can always tell when someone doesn't want to do that character because they're like, yeah, well, he's just some guy and he just does this and I think he's going to do that. And whereas sometimes you can really tell, and sometimes we've had a couple. But what we also find though, even if you've got two people that are really passionate about that character, what we found is, whilst one person might pip them out for that role, if that NPC is starting to get really fleshed out and you can hear that person's really committed to that NPC and they've got a great idea, yeah, exactly. Can they be the herald? Can they be the sheriff? Can they be, so
maybe they want to be seneschal and they're hoping for a chance.
Well, that's it, right? Well, that's it. And one of the things that we're really, really conscious of in this is we want to give players a lot of agency, but we want to give players... LARP can be hard, right? Especially big group LARP, because finding things to do is often a challenge. Because it's not a railroad. Usually it's a sandbox. You enter as an individual and it's really kind of up to you to find your story. It's not like tabletop where the GM's like, right, okay, everyone, you're in a tavern and a goblin walks
left.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can turn right or you can turn left and make a skill check now. Like, it's not, LARP's not like that. If you go and sit on your own in the corner of the room, then that will be your experience. You will have sat in the corner of the room all night. That is what you will do.
Champion corner sitter.
Do you know what I mean? So, but
maybe we need to make that. We need to make an official award, the champion. That needs to be a thing.
But we're conscious of, and it's not that we want to drive people into action, because I know some people enjoy that part of LARP. I want to turn up, have a beer, chat in character, and I might get drawn into something, and that's fine because there's flavors for everyone. But what we want is that underlying kind of interest and activity where NPCs are like, well, I want to be the seneschal. So, but what we're going to try and do very strongly with our NPCs is the NPC themselves isn't going to be particularly active, because that takes agency away from players. So what the idea behind our NPCs is you give the agency to the players and say, well, it'd be really great if their haven burnt down, and then you walk away.
How horrible that would be for them.
Wouldn't it be a terrible disaster if all of their ghouls were wiped out and they had no access to, do you know what I mean? Like
exactly,
to play games, but allow the player characters to find their own game within the mysteries of what the NPCs are doing. Okay, so
there's a hard part to that, though.
Sure.
And I mean, aside from all the obvious balancey stuff that anybody can pick up on, the other half is players we the people running the game in one form or another absolutely have to provide them not just the environment but an opportunity for agency, right? That has to be the plan, and you're right about that. But the other half of that equation is what the player brings to the table. If your plan is, we're going to pretend this is sort of a Star Wars thing, right? If your plan is that your character, just you are going to be the punk-ass kid who discovers that he is both a Jedi and a super badass pilot of doom and will single-handedly blow up the Death Star, I'm sorry, mate, but that's probably not going to be you, because there are 75 other people that came here tonight, and they can't all be Luke fucking Skywalker.
No, quite. And and LARP, the thing that I've always enjoyed about LARP is it's a much lower... it's a much lower activity system because you can't be a great big damn hero because you're in a great big system of people. So most of you are just normal people. But the joy of Vampire LARP is you then add in the fact that you're Kindred and you've got all these wonderful. You're not that normal, right? You've got all these wonderful abilities, right?
And so the key is for the players to build, and with the help of the people running the game, of course, but to build their own personal motivations for that character, right? The biggest advice I can give any player in the history of ever, no matter whether it's tabletop or LARP, you need to figure out who you're playing. Whoever that person is going to have their own motivations, their own plans, their own hopes, dreams, fears, failures, all that stuff. And if you do that, if you know who you're trying to portray in the game you're playing, not only are you going to have a better time, but everyone around you will also.
Yeah, that's true.
You are always an NPC in everyone else's story.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
It's something we always have to look for, no matter what kind of GM or storyteller or referee you are. It's something I think we always owe it to the players to help them and guide them.
Yeah, and there's some things that Mark wants to do differently with our system, and we're on board. And I'm on board with. I've listened to him. He's talked about it a lot, and there's some things he wants to do differently, like new player refs, taking people through their character sheet and taking them through their motivation and not worrying too much about the character sheet, worrying about what's your motivation, what's your goals, what you want to achieve, because once you understand the motivation of the character, you can then start layering activity and behavior and responses. If you know your character wants to achieve a certain end goal, then you can rationalize how they behave to other external inputs that are going into that character. And the thing is, No, carry on. No, go for it.
Just if you walk into the game and your immediate thought is to find a way to work into the conversation that, hello, I am a first level venture neonate. Nice to meet you. that you've already cocked it up, right? We have failed you, and you are helping to fail the rest of the people playing tonight.
Yeah, because you're going to drift out of you. Yeah, everyone's going to drift out of character. Everyone's going to be taken out of the immersion of everything going on.
Exactly.
That's fun. Yeah. Our job. Yeah, well, so I'm part of the NPC crew. That's kind of my area because I'm not very knowledgeable about. I've been reading and picking things up, and some of it I find fascinating. Well, I spent a lot of time making Brouillard characters, and basically because we do round tables, I had some really cool ideas for Brouillard, and people were like, "Oh, Sam's idea is really cool. Let's do that one." And I'm like, "Okay." And then we come back round and I'm like, even the ones where I was like, you know what? I want someone else to make a Brouillard character now. So I'm going to put up something lame that no one will like. And I put up something lame and everyone's like, that's amazing. We're doing that. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I got to do to write a different character?
Well, so the problem, you've got two problems here. One, you're brilliant, right? And two, you intimidate the hell out of everyone. They're going to get the wrong. And you're going to tell them that they're wrong.
Yeah, that's not true.
Scared of you because you're
That's not true.
It's total bullshit.
What I think it is that usually with role play, whether it's D&D or Vampire or Star Wars, what generally happens is you get involved from a personal level with archetypes that are effectively you on Spinal Tap. You at 11. That's effective. Now you can go against the grain. I love going against the grain. Playing D&D and playing a wizard or playing a rogue or a goblin. I love that. I love going against the grain and forcing myself to role play something that's uncomfortable from a natural point of view, because it's natural for me to be big. It's natural for me to be loud. It's natural for me to hit things and be all melee like. It's less natural.
You're so petite and wee.
You are, yes, indeed. But I like playing goblins. I like to challenge my role playing and storytelling ability by going, you know what? I'm going to play a goblin and he's going to be, I don't know, a warlock. You know what I mean? Like, which is, or I'm going to be I remember I played a fairy, a pixie warlock once. That was it, not a goblin, a pixie warlock. She had and it was a female, and she had 3 hit points, and like every instinct in every fight for me is like, I'm going to charge in, I'm going to tank, and I'm going to nut it.
Yeah.
But she had 3 hit points.
So maybe I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'll sit back here and go pew pew.
Which is fun, right? But I think what happens with the Brouillard clan and myself is I'm a bit of a punk at heart.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit of a rebel. I'm a bit counterculture. I enjoy that sort of
anarchy.
So for me, Brouillard and myself, we just kind of mesh together. So when I have an idea for something for a character, they're like, "Oh, that sounds very Brouillard." And it's like, well, because my thought process is my characters are.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think people are like that though. I think that so far that's what I've been intrigued by Vampire, because it seems to have something for. Now it is a horror system. When we say it's got something for everyone, it doesn't. If you're not into horror, you're not going to get. It's not going to be for you. Like
right, you'll be bored or confused or scared or any of the above, right?
Or offended or whatever. You know, this is not a game for being like, oh, I fancy playing with fantasy. It's not that sort of game. It's much darker. It's a horror based system. Whilst we're going to be very, very careful with our themes. That's another thing that we're going to be one of the things that we're going to be doing over the next year or so is being very clear about what our themes do and don't involve. Yeah, I think the codifying it, like you said, it is actually the right word. I think is because as long as we know if we know who we are, the players will know what we're about, and there'll be no misconceptions. You know, I think the trouble I've always thought is, usually these things mean different things to different people. People show up and they're like, vampire to me is this and vampire to me is something else. And if they come together and they have opposing ideologies and we don't,
nobody happy.
Yeah. And then, whereas if we tell them already, well, when you come here, you're both going to expect the same thing. Expectations are set. And that's really important for us, is that the players know what they're coming into. And also, like I said, we want to make this game really intriguing for new players, although we're really aware that we're going to have to rely on old players because it is a horror-based niche system. So we're going to have to rely on people coming back, but we also want to open it up to new players. We don't want to terrify them by them walking in on something that
in the wrong way, right? We want to terrify them in the right way.
Well, that's it, exactly.
Into,
yeah, exactly.
There's no growth in the comfort zone. We have to be willing to step outside of the obvious type. If every character you ever write or play or whatever has some aspect of you in it. Of course it does, right? But you stepping out and playing the pixie. I mean, I've met one or two people that are less a pixie than you, but
yeah, sure. Sure.
The first time I ever played a Bruja, I did it specifically because I had never done it before.
Okay.
And it was during a time of incredible, crazy trouble at a convention in a LARP, and I ended up becoming the prince, which was not my plan, but that's how it played out. These things happen. You have to be willing to step outside yourself a little bit, because otherwise you're gonna get the same thing you get every other time you play anything. And don't get me wrong, everybody that eats chocolate likes chocolate, but sometimes you want something that isn't chocolate.
Yeah, I agree. So on that note though, what is your so you said you played a Brouillard for the first time to push yourself out of comfort zone. So where's your comfort zone in Vampire then?
It's funny. I ran so much rather than play that my comfort zone became whatever I'm playing in the moment for the NPC.
Right.
Old school, I enjoyed the occasional opportunity to play the gangrel.
Right.
I've had a lot of fun playing Caitiff because they're so out there and so, by definition, off the rest of society.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed, playing the Fleshbenders. They've been a lot of fun. Michi, they're a lot of fun to play because of how old school they really are.
Right.
I've occasionally enjoyed the La Sombra. I've enjoyed the Ventrue. I've enjoyed the Tremere, especially when they expanded what they could do. That's a lot of fun to me. But I will always, on some level, now that I've done it, some part of me will always go back to, not so much the Toreador, because that's obvious.
Sure.
But the Bruja. The thing the other thing I think it's important for players to remember is, right, any other role-playing game, what is your class, right? I'm a fighter type. Okay, got it. You're the guy who runs in and hits things. Or maybe you're an archer or whatever. Mm-hmm. Your clan, while it will likely select you to sire to make into a vampire for things that you do in your mortal life, right? So there's a good portion of that that's like attracting like. These aren't these super crazy strict things that, if you are not a big damn singer or painter, you could not possibly be a Toreador.
Sure.
Likewise, you're allowed to be, for instance, a Tremere who sings. It's allowed.
Sure.
There's nothing preventing that because nobody I've ever met is one skill set and one skill set only in real life. So why would it be like that in a LARP game like this?
Yeah, so if you want to be a bank robber, you can do that as a Briar, as a Vontru. You can, if that's your past, you could be a Toreador. Like you could be a thief that loves stealing fine art, right? That makes you Toreador, exactly. or it makes you Briar, or it makes there's so many. You're right, actually. Classes don't really fit, do they?
No. You have archetypes which exists to give you an idea of what the clan itself is all about.
Sure.
Who they usually tend to go for, right? But you can be a gangrel Wolf of Wall Street type.
Sure.
Right? You could be a stockbroker or have been, right? And that's easy to do. You could have been a dancer, a street person. You could have been, a student someplace. You could have been an activist. You could have been a gardener, just a gardener. But you did such good work making your garden beautiful that some Toreador decided, you know what, I love the work you do, and I'm going to make you one of us because I don't want what you do as an art to die.
Sure.
Right? There are a million ways to skin that particular cat. The clans exist to give you what you have become. And they'll guide you as to, helping to figure out why you were made into that, why somebody decided to select you. But don't feel as a player like you're stuck. If I am this, then I must do all of these things. And if I do anything different, like I can't be a singer. Why not? Well, I'm not a Toreador. I promise you, they're not the only singers in the world.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
Again, stuff for players to think about.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I it is almost a classless system in that you can be anything within your clan and anything that you want. And even beyond that, you don't even have to stay in your clan. If your clan pisses you off, if you
bloodline is still your bloodline.
Of course, but you can take a boon with someone and drink someone else's blood and take some bloodline from somewhere else, and learn disciplines and wander off and be like, you know what, I really don't like what you're doing right now. I'm off over here. But it doesn't change who you are, though, right? You as a character can remain yourself, doing the things that you need or want to do.
Yeah, so there are people who at some point in their life become cashiers, right? And maybe they do it through school or whatever, because they have to in real life make money. They have to pay the bills.
Sure.
So being a cashier at Tesco's is what was available to me. So I did that job. And that's there are more people that have done that, I'm sure, here in the UK than we can easily shake a stick at.
Sure.
None of them live, breathe, eat, sleep, and die.
No, it's what they do, not who they are, right?
Exactly.
It's what they do, not who they are.
And that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Figure out who you are and what you do. And the two will meet, but they're not the same thing.
Sure.
Right? I'm preaching to the choir.
No, but it's a fascinating thing to point out to people, and I'm sure people that are listening are going to agree, because obviously the people that are going to listen and watch this are going to be fans of role play, and I'm sure they've got their own. In fact, I'll be fascinated for people to put comments on this about their own interpretation of clans and which clans that they attach to, and it'd be fascinating to understand people that want to come and play SVBN, what clans attracted them. And we're going to be playing in V5, so the clans are slightly different than they were before. Not in mechanics, but in politics and in what's going on. What's going on with those clans, what's going on with them with regards to the anarchy movement, and what's going on with them with the Camarilla, and obviously everything that's going on with the elders. And so V5 is a whole brand new setting with a whole new brand new set of problems, and the clans themselves aren't exactly the same as they were when we left them back in the late 90s. So it'll be really fascinating to understand, and obviously from a game making point of view, it'll be fascinating to understand what people are interested in playing and where they're coming from and what intrigues them, and and we're not going to open up every clan. Like we're not going to have every single clan that you can read in the V5 books. They're not all going to be available straight away. And there's some good reasons for that, because some of the clans have got some horrifically overpowered disciplines and some things that would have to be taken under control. And we also want to make sure that the feel of it is right for what we're trying to achieve because of the storyline and what we want to have going on in Southampton by night. So some things just won't make sense to have that clan active in this area at that time. That doesn't mean that people can't.
You're not gonna have hundreds of vampires in one tiny town.
No, quite.
Basis.
And if you do, you're more likely to have more from the same clan, right? Because of the umbrella of protection. You know,
Exactly.
if you're gonna have Toreador and Vontra and Bruyar, then that's probably what you're gonna have here, because they've divvied up the portions of domain, and they're all looking after each other, and they've all got small little peace treaties going on, and that will be fascinating to watch develop. And so, anyway, we are very rapidly running out of time. We've been chatting for about an hour, not quite, but almost. I know.
I hate that we get on and get to talk. What? Poor us.
But JP, just real quick, like, is there anything else that you wanted to like bring up or like let people know about yourself, whether that's people in the crew or the people looking in from this from the outside? You know, like what's your ambitions or your hopes for getting involved with this project? What are your goals rather than your character's goals?
Well, so I'm not even sure who I'm going to be playing yet, which is exciting, right? Like I'm glad I don't have that answer, because it lets me find my feet within what's happening in Southampton, so that when I actually walk onto the theoretical or possibly literal stage, when we do the live action finally later this year.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Toes and eyes. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, indeed.
What I can tell you is I am, so I'm almost hesitant to say this, because I don't like making kind of promises that aren't set in stone, but between the work I do for other projects for myself, like I've got 2 records that I have to put out by summertime on my own, and then I've got another book I have to write for the series that I'm working on. But my expectation now is that we have expanded the scope of what I originally have put together for Southampton by Night with regards to music. We have already done Without Fear, the first song. I have to obviously mix it and do a little bit more work on it, but I've deliberately tabled that to start writing more music, because I think there's a really good chance, certainly there'll be a couple of songs, but there's at least a real chance that before we get to the first sort of live game, there will be an entire soundtrack.
That's fantastic, and that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, right? And you know, that's fantastic. Okay, well, what we'll hopefully do then, what I'm hoping then at some point is we can come back and maybe you can at some point we can leak some samples, or even maybe a track at some point can get leaked out for our fans. Maybe definitely our Patreon. I just want to say thank you for having a chat with me, JP. It's been great to chat to you and meet you and get a chance to get you know you a bit better. Hopefully, our crewmates, they can listen to this and they can get to know you a little bit better. And Kindred and Ghosts and Ghouls and Mortals and all our fans for SVBN, hopefully you've got to know me and JP a little bit better from listening to our crew vlog. I just want to say you can check out everything that we've got going on by finding us on Facebook. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. Just look for Southampton Vampire by Night. We've got a Patreon, we've got a YouTube channel. Please check it out. When you check it out, please give us a subscribe and a like. It really helps us out. If you can, share, tell people what's going on. We really appreciate you listening and hanging around to the end. JP, again, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And everyone, take it easy, look after yourselves, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks.